And now I'm in a space of wanting to help other women who feel like it's not okay to talk about the other side of achievement and goal achievement. It's like you're only supposed to celebrate, but some of that comes with a lot of change that, as they say, this was not in the manual. It's okay to be super excited about something, but wow, this is really tough and there's some grief involved. And I hit a point where my now husband and I discovered we were expecting, and I was promoted, and I was like, oh wow, life is going great. I have the income I wanted, I have the title, I have the person and the things. And then when I turned around, I was like, but this isn't enough. What is going on? And the major turning point for me was, Roxanne, you just got this family, this immediate family, your child, your husband. You can't get another job. You don't want to lose this family. This is a very important time for your child, a young child. And I was like, why did I value this career title and the accolades over this little foundational family?
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Self Care Oasis Podcast. I'm your host, Samantha Gregory, the Self Care Alchemist, and I help women transform burnout into better boundaries, more balance, and shameless bliss through radical self-care, self-devotion, and wellness travel sometimes too. I'm excited for another guest that's appearing with us today. Her name is Roxanne Turner, and she has a story to tell. She also has a framework that she wants to share with us about how to move out of burnout into better boundaries, more balance, and bliss in her own way. Maybe not the same way as I talk about it, but it's her signature way. And so I'm excited to have you, Roxanne. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Samantha.
Excellent. So, Roxanne, I always ask my guests to tell us about yourself, what you do, what your purpose on the planet is, basically, and then we're going to get to talk about your story.
Sure. In the broader view, you would see a mental health professional devoted to her community, especially disenfranchised communities. I've always worked in that population from high crisis down to everyday work, and I just loved it just because of the impact. Coming from a systemic background, I'm West Indian born, I just always felt like the need to reach out to the community. How I came more to my purpose was in my own divine intervention. I had a lot of things happen at the same time while I was moving up the career ladder. And I realized that I had somehow divorced myself from my values of what was important. And now everything just wasn't feeling great anymore. And so I hate the word pivot, but it is what it is. I changed. I made some very hard decisions, some strategic decisions. And now I'm in a space of wanting to help other women who feel like it's not okay to talk about the other side of achievement and goal achievement. It's like you're only supposed to celebrate, but some of that comes with a lot of change that, as they say, this was not in the manual. And so I just enjoy talking to mostly millennial Gen X women, but it's okay that you can have both emotions at the same time. It's okay to be super excited about something, but wow, this is really tough and there's some grief involved. And so that's how I kind of came about where I'm at right now. And I truly think that's my purpose, is to help people kind of recognize that there's more than one way. My superpower is perspective, as my former colleagues would say.
I love that. I love perspective is actually everything because we all have a different perspective. And I think with that gift, you're able to share a perspective where somebody's kind of blind to what's happening to in their life, why a certain path may be pivotal for them, and just how to get back into this self-knowing and I don't know, I call it self-centeredness, because when we center ourselves, when we can become more grounded in our life, our experiences, and get back to joy. So
Absolutely. Yes.
yeah, I love that. And so I feel like we're coming from a place of emotional self-care. I look at self-care in so many different facets, from emotional to spiritual to relational, physical. And I think most people, we're always talking about the physical self-care. Then I guess emotional kind of secondary, because when we're coming from the burnout perspective, it's like my body feels it, my heart feels it.
Yes.
So from the emotional standpoint, I think this is gonna be a really great conversation. But first, even before that, did you experience some type of burnout, and how did that, I know, inform the work you're doing now? But like, what was the story? How did burnout affect your life?
Sure. So, as I mentioned, I was a career woman, working my way up. Why not?
Hmm.
And I hit a point where my now husband and I discovered we were expecting, and I was promoted. And I was like, oh, wow, life is going great. I have the income I wanted, I have the title, I have the person and the things. And then when I turned around, I was like, but this isn't enough. What is going on? So I just thought maybe let's live it, give it some time. Give it some time, Roxanne. It's new. And I realized I was coming home and taking out things on my family that had nothing to do with them. And I said, that's rule number one. And as a therapist, you feel kind of icky because you're like, am I a hypocrite? I'm teaching you to have self care. I'm teaching my supervisees to have better self care so that their clients' information doesn't burn them out. But I was
Hmm.
burning myself out, protecting everyone else. And the major turning point for me was, Roxanne, you just got this family, this immediate family, your child, your husband. You can't get another job. You don't want to lose this family. This is a very important time for your child, a young child. And I was like, why did I value this career title and the accolades over this little foundational family? And I was like, see, that's how I know something's wrong. How did I divorce myself from that value? Because that's a huge value for me. Top is always peace, but the second piece is family. And I'm like, how did I put a value that's not even in my top 10 before that? And so my family was like, whatever you need, you seem very tired, you're burned out, you have a lot of stress. And so they gave me 6 months, and here we are almost 2 years later. I've just decided that maybe that structure of working is not for me.
Hmm.
And I think more of the entrepreneurship way where I can do my schedule and still flex and be where I need to be. Sandwich generation, that comes with a whole other challenges as well, but I can also make decisions that are more based on my values and not you have this title and you kind of want to keep that title and it sounds good, girl, I'm a manager. But okay, but that's nice if you're alone or your family is
Hmm.
suffering because of it. So yeah, I would say the pinnacle of my burnout would be 2024, and I had to just decide, gotta leave. I didn't realize how burnt out I was until I slowed down. Like after the
Hmm.
holidays, so the beginning of 2025, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't even do like dual thoughts. I have to like do one thing at a time. And for a multitasker, as many of us are, like, how did we get here? And I said, you have burned out all your systems so much that you can't even do normal things. So, yeah, so it's more recent. And I had just to figure out like what's most important and focus more on that so that I can recover properly.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that you got to the space where you recognized it, because I think a lot of time, instead of pushing and pushing and pushing, and you had the
Yes.
anger of your family, to remind you that there's more to my purpose than this job. There
Yes.
is more to life than being a manager, even though that's great. And
It's wonderful.
it is, the accolade, the sense of accomplishment, the pay, the everything. And I think that as women, especially high achieving women, we tend to gravitate towards that because either we've been taught it, we've seen it, we came from a background that I guess we feel like we needed to do something more or better.
Yes. Yes.
And we also fall into what the media says. Society says that this is this peak experience, success experience,
Mm-hmm.
and especially if you've been indoctrinated to, as a girl, go to school, get your education, get a job, and do all the
Yes.
things that
Yes.
are the hallmarks of success. That's what I was taught. That's what I did,
Yes.
and
Same.
but nobody gives you the other side of it. Nobody tells you that you literally, by being in this energy and this space on a constant basis and not honoring your internal clock, honoring your moon cycle, not honoring your hormones, not honoring, like you said, your family life and everything, you are going to burn out because this is not sustainable. And I think that's
No.
for women across the board. And I love how you were like, 2 years later, I recognize that entrepreneurship is probably the best way for me to live out my purpose. Same.
Yes. Yes.
Same.
Yes.
And I think more and more realizing that because being in the workplace, as much as we fought to be there, People
Yes.
love to recognize it. Yeah, that's not the way I want it. That's not the way to go.
Yes. And I don't down those who have made careers of it because
Right.
they found a way to make it work for them
Yeah.
where they can find that harmony. I'm
Hmm.
just saying for me, this is how I ended up here. That's all I'm saying. It's not either or. Again, it's
Right.
as for me in this house, okay,
Hmm.
it just didn't work. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And in your process of, at first you didn't recognize how deeply burned out you were. So what were the things that you did to start to heal the burnout?
I'm a well avid believer that a therapist needs their own therapist. And
Mm-hmm.
so I one thing that did help me feel more comfortable in making the transition and the decision was I had regular therapy. I've been fortunate to been working with all people of color for my therapist. So when I say certain things and certain it's not like just push through kind of message. I had for support that side. But also, I had to be proactive and warn my family, like, I'm going to start saying things that makes it seem like I'm well. And so when you start hearing that, just remind me it's okay. Because if you've been working, I was working 20, like literally since I became an adult, I have been working. And so your worth is tied to that. Your sense of time is tied to that. And so if I start sounding like it looks like I'm ready to go back, but I'm still not able to do XYZ, just go ahead and say it's okay. Remember, just remember. And I think those two things have helped. And then the third thing that has helped is just being more aware of all the physical impact that of the burnout has had and just connecting with specialists. I have insurance, I'm going to use it. Who else do I need to see to get this together? A nutritionist. I now have a specialist because perimenopause has entered the chat. And so, like that kind of thing, I'm like, okay, I have to take care of my health so well that I
Yeah.
can relearn the signals that my body was telling me long before I heard it. So I have to just also get grounded back in my own self that will always tell you well before things are wrong. And so those three things. So what pretty much I'm addressing all the realms of self-care.
Yeah.
But yeah, certain ones are a little trickier than others, especially the message of if you do nothing in one day, what did you do? Like I mean,
Right.
are you even doing anything because you decided today was the day to stare out the window? But we've come a long way. We've come a long way.
I love that. And that's so honest and raw because I think that's a part people don't really see. They don't
Yeah.
see that the burnout recovery is not an instant thing. It
No,
wasn't an instant occurrence. Burnout didn't
no.
happen instantly. It happened over years for most of
Mm-hmm.
us.
Mm-hmm.
And for you to enlist your family to kind of ground you again in the, hey, you think you're good, but really you there's a lot more work to be done. And not that that's a problem, is simply an awareness.
Mm-hmm.
There's still more to do. You're not quite ready. How about you just slow down a little bit more? It's okay. And having family to be able to do that for you, with you, and be able to articulate that, because I think a lot of times, I know for me specifically, I'm used to keeping everything in and not
Mm-hmm.
inviting people into my journey because I don't want to burden them. I don't want
Yes.
them to feel, even look at me in a different way. So I really appreciate that you even enlisted your family to kind of keep you in check, keep you grounded, and not allow you to run off again into the same, situation. But just take your time, and it's okay.
Yes, and now Samantha, we're going to be honest. There have been people who have done the it must be nice.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I could. And in the beginning, that was very tricky to navigate that space of like, I'm now dealing with their discomfort instead of mine because I'm okay, right?
Yes, yes.
But when it's your family, that's a different feeling. To your point about not sharing with others, because I
Mm-hmm.
was like, if this person said it must be nice, then the others will think that too. And let me just keep that to myself. They don't even know what I do for a living, so they might not even realize I'm not working for a good little bit. But that's not going to help anybody because being honest about what happens, again, you never know who needs that like permission to say, "Oh my gosh, yes, I was like that. You're right. You do need something, time off. If you can't take it off of work, what else can you do?" But yeah, it hurt. That hurts from some people with the, it must be nice to be able to do that. And thank God for therapy for me to work through that. Again, that's about them
Yeah,
and not me.
yeah,
So,
absolutely. And that is challenging. That's hard. And I think that But you do it does a couple of things. First, you're showing that you're choosing yourself,
Yes.
and they haven't reached that point yet. I'm
No.
kind of I reframe it that way
Yes.
instead of getting upset
Yes.
about it.
That's
It's like,
great.
"Well,
That's great.
that's
Yeah.
not their journey. That's not where they are right now, and
Right.
so I can let it go faster, not look at it as a sentence or a anything that has anything to do with me. It's about
Right.
them, and I can
Absolutely.
let that go. But I also love that, you've also looked at the physical. You mentioned hormonal, perimenopause,
Oh
and all
man.
that stuff. Trust
Mm,
me, I
mm,
get it.
mm.
And I feel like going into that cycle exacerbates burnout,
Yes.
you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, I agree. I have told many of my former coworkers, I said, I'm even if I had stayed, I don't know if I would have stayed as long as you guys think, because as soon as I started to recognize that this is not postpartum, this is perimenopause,
Hmm.
right? And your agitation has nothing to do with Monday. Like, right? So, treatment or not, exercise or not, I probably would have still had to leave, because I think perimenopause is the great revealer of what you've been tolerating. And yeah, for whatever reason or not, I just chose to leave earlier than me having to go kicking and screaming. I felt it would have been a grander exit than the way I did it, which was very just like, thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Not you, it's
Hmm.
me kind of
Hmm.
thing.
Exactly, exactly. And I think as because the correlation is not really made that as much right now, I think it's
No.
starting to happen.
Yes.
Women are so confused being in the workplace, experiencing burnout, but rather push through because quitting is a weakness. It feels like a
Yes.
weakness. But
Yes.
when your body is screaming, it's like, look, man, you need
Yes.
to sit down ASAP because you're going to be in the hospital, you're going to crash out. And as your hormones are going through this depletion cycle and you are no longer able to think clearly, you can't
Mm-hmm.
sleep, you got
Mm-hmm.
things happening with your body and you're irritated and you can't even really do your job. That literally where I was. I could not do my job because of
Yes.
perimenopause and then the thoughts that continue to roll around in my head about my value because I felt when I felt depleted and I
Mm-hmm.
felt it was like a disability a disability really.
Yes. Yes.
And I know in some places they're moving for legislation to recognize menopause as
Yes.
a disability, perimenopause, even your monthly menstrual as a type of disability. And I'm so happy to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
But that just goes to show that women are now being more vocal in what's happening with their bodies, and some companies and maybe some governments are starting to listen, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, we're making small steps. I do agree. I've seen other articles about other countries acknowledging PMDD, and I'm like, well, whoa, okay. A small step for
Mhm.
womankind, but yes, I agree. And also, if you are raised as a high achieving woman or high achieving person, generally speaking, that feels terrible when your body, quote unquote, just betrays you. Because
Yes.
if I give it X number of hours of sleep and I eat this and this one cup of coffee, I should be able to function all day. Why am I not able to do this?
Hmm.
And then your body just keeps, okay, until she listens to me, I'm just going to keep giving these signs.
Right.
And maybe one day she'll get it. And hopefully it doesn't involve an emergency room stay, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. But yes, totally understand. I thought similarly when the brain fog emerged, and I'm like, but wait, you managed a full department. How are you
Hmm.
not able to remember your grocery list? Like,
Right.
it's
Right.
like, yeah, apples and oranges, but still, yeah.
Absolutely. But I think it all correlates, and I think as women are becoming more aware
Mm-hmm.
of the different aspects of burnout, the different aspects of hormonal health, and how they're like literally it's not one and the same, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a close. And I think I think it accelerates the rate at which you become perimenopausal or
Yes.
menopausal.
Yes.
Um, and I think even that awareness is important. So starting to support yourself with supplements, going to your
Mm-hmm.
doctor and getting, I would say hormone treatments or at least boosters earlier
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
is,
Mm-hmm.
I think, a really good option for women who are in this stage of life and are needing and looking for support. And I think
Yes.
that's a really important part of the burnout prevention and recovery journey.
Yes. It's a continuum for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier that you are, you're a systems person and framework. So what is the systems and frameworks that you use for your clients to help them navigate emotional self-care, burnout, and anything else that they may come to you for?
Sure. Again, I'm values based, and I think the best place to start is when I started with clients, I had a list and it was just a general activity to do in a group, but it became so integral to other conversations. It was here's a list of values, just put a check mark. Don't start ranking it yet because then you start looking at other people like I
Mm-hmm.
should be higher in here. Just pick about a couple. And then now the next step is pick 10. And now that you are like, okay, what are your top five? And
Mm-hmm.
so that was like the first step. And then after that, I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to build something out beyond this because people are still talking about, wow, I didn't realize how important that was. And also that my definition might look different of one word. Like one word is wisdom, how that could look two different ways for two different people. So with that, once you kind of identify those are my five important things, now it's really time to ask yourself, how many of my most recent decisions have been based on those top five values? And if the
Mm-hmm.
answers are a lot of no's, that's when we start saying, okay, now what do we do next? Because I'm like 85 to 95% certain a lot of the discord that you feel is because, again, you divorced yourself from those top values. And so my framework is more about, okay, we can be upset, we can discuss how terrible it is, but let us find out how and then what's next, because usually
Mm-hmm.
that's what we're always saying. We achieve a goal, congratulations, what's next? Okay, now let's do what's next based on those values.
Right.
Okay, so for example, one client was returning to work after several years of being a stay-at-home mom, and she was like, I don't even know if I like the word job. Okay, let's start with that. And then the values were listed, and it took some tweaking. There were some other job opportunities that she left. However, I feel like my role, different from job, is so much more different now than when before because I based it on the values and the things I wanted to accomplish. And if I'm taking it a step further, depending on how long I'm with you, this is my purpose. Now that
Mm-hmm.
I'm in purpose, even when I have difficult days, I didn't say that all of a sudden life is bells and whistles and wonderful because no, it just makes things easier to navigate when you know that this is just a small blip in an overall thing. And so I identify some values, tease out like, so how do we leave that? And moving forward, how do we now make sure that your next couple of goals can always refer back to those top five, even 10 if you can, and then say, now, how does that look in your brain? Because you learn a new language and you're going to revert back to your original one sometimes. You
Mm-hmm.
have to build that muscle. So that's how I walked clients through, and it helped even with in community mental health, you always have to follow a treatment plan. And I'm a very goal oriented person, and I just didn't want the fluff goals. That's
Yeah.
cute.
Yeah.
Who cares? What does that even mean? That's nice. It's a easy to check off goal. Let's start making some good goals because that hamster wheel of success got you, and you felt like you just needed the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And now you have no idea if this is even important to you or not.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So hopefully at the end of all of that, you're like, even if I'm not sure exactly what my next step is, I know how to make the decision on how to move forward because if it doesn't line up with these things, I just cannot do it. I just
Right.
cannot.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. That's such a great process, especially for people who are just like trying to identify where they are and what their, like you said, their values are, what is meaningful for them. Because we lose track of that so
Yes.
easily in the day to day, in the
Hmm.
roles that we play, the responsibilities we take on, the just everything, and again, the conditioning and the programming as a woman. These here are the
Yes.
things that you're supposed to do, and
Yes.
we're steady trying to make sure we check off all those things, and that we've done all those things, and we are
Hmm.
showing up and appearing as this successful in all areas of our life, but we're just really drowning, and we've lost ourselves. We've lost sight of who we are, and so I love that your framework reconnects and grounds them
Yes.
back into self.
Yes.
Um, And yeah, it's amazing. I'm really, and I think it also goes, like you said, beyond this just the standard self care. Here's the things that fluff that you can do just to feel
Yeah,
better. This is
no,
like, yeah, no,
no,
you're going to be going through that same loop again. You're going to be going to
absolutely.
burnout to
Hmm.
relief, to burnout to relief, and trying to do these things that mainstream commercial society says you should do, because that's really what it's all about, to get you to kind of
Yes.
buy the next thing. But it doesn't ground you in anything. It doesn't ground you in yourself or your identity or your reclamation of your identity either.
Yes, yes. I think we want to be acknowledged. I'm not going to ignore that. That's why we go for those goals. We want to
Hmm.
be acknowledged for achieving them, but okay, that's why you feel icky afterwards
Yeah.
because you got the acknowledgement, but then it was like this immediate cliff. Let's make it so it's not that nasty feeling afterward. Oh, what's next? Okay,
Hmm.
I got to do something else because this wasn't it. I didn't feel it.
Yeah.
You know?
So, what have you found in clients that have gone through your process and your framework? How have they kind of come back and said, what are some of the changes that they've seen in their lives?
So I think the huge thing for me is that it's they're teasing out the values that were placed for in them, not what they chose.
Mm,
So a lot of the burnout was I was meeting this person's value of success, I was meeting this person's value of family, and now that I've identified that this is my definition, it may still be important. I'm not really sure I want to move forward in this way anymore. For
mm,
example, the person who wanted to return to work, the idea is that you have to be a full-time pension, and it became, listen, I'm okay with working X number of hours and that allows me to explore other hobbies and other avenues, and this works better for me than, hey, you guys, I have the corporate 9 to 5 job. Again, no shame to those who love it, but
mhm.
for her, that's how she ended up where she was in the first place. And
Yeah.
so that's a win for me. I don't necessarily need fireworks, but oh wow, A, these weren't mine, I can put them down, or B, I I started out with a whole different list, and it's okay to change because each year of life comes with a new decision to make about those values.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
yes, and I think it's easier also to connect to self-care methods when you know what's important. I don't need a bath. I hate that. For me, nails and hair, that is hygiene for me. But for you, you love the whole process.
Mhm.
Wonderful. Then go get your hair done because that's self-care. But again, if it's not, let's not post reels about you getting your hair done. If it's not, if you're like, okay, I just paid someone this money and I don't feel great, but my hair
Mhm.
looks good. Okay, like that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so it's such an individualized experience. And I think when we can embrace that, again, going back to our identity, going back to reclaiming yourself, this is we are here as an individual entity and experience.
Yes.
And life is not a group project, basically.
No. I wish it was, but
And this certainly isn't a group project, because there's different reasons why we got to this point. There are different
Mhm.
circumstances and people involved and all the things. And so it's like, if you can get out of the idea that this has to be a group project, that the whole world has to see what you're doing, that you are going to emerge with some, you know, trophy.
yeah,
It just doesn't work that way,
yeah.
because the biggest part of this is you now are honoring yourself, honoring your new experience that you're creating, and giving yourself the space and the grace to sometimes fall back into old patterns, but then you recover faster. And I
Hmm.
think that's so important for us to allow for ourselves, so
Hmm.
that and moving out of that space where we have to do have a certain thing in order to please or look good for other people on the outside. It's not even about them.
It never was really.
No, never was.
Yeah. I think
So,
also giving people the acknowledgement that your success may not be tangible
mhm,
because sanity is not tangible, that's internal.
that's a word.
So so if you're looking for some magic moment, it's literally waking up feeling okay, and nobody needs to know that.
And I think that's one of the reasons why I think it's hard for a lot of people to even start this process, this journey,
Yes. Yes.
because it's not a lot of tangibles there. It's like, this doesn't mean you're going to get richer overnight. It doesn't mean you're going to have the best, the best personal relationship overnight. It doesn't mean that you're going to, have all these things that you can see, like you can see when you are in a career or when you
Yes.
are
Yes.
at the top of your game or like it's the markers for success is not evident when you
Right.
go on this journey, but at the core you get to live a little bit longer and happier and freer. So I think it's important.
Yes. Yes. Please.
So I've loved this conversation about not just your story, but your frameworks and how you're helping other people through their process and their journey. So, what, how can people connect with you after this conversation, after listening to this podcast? And do you have something that you want to share in terms of an offer or just your program and how they can connect with you in that?
Sure. So I'm building in that building stage. And so I definitely have a website. It's Pivotal Perspectives CC, the letter CC.com. I'm also at Pivotal Perspectives LLC across socials. I'm not on TikTok. I'm sorry. I picked my battle. And there I just share thoughts and just little tips and tricks here and there, just feeding you. But I'm always open to a discovery call. Some people don't necessarily know, would I be a good fit? The fact that I am certified as a coach and also a therapist, I can kind of help guide you to the next step. And even in Maryland, I have some people who are my colleagues I can connect you with if it turns out you need therapy. But it's just, let's start the conversation though. So definitely reach out to me on my website again, pivotalperspectivescc.com, or on social media, Pivotal Perspectives LLC, across all socials. I don't have a group going yet, but I do have one in mind that I'm going to start kind of teasing out just because it's so needed. So needed. Yes.
Absolutely. And people are craving community now more than
Yes.
ever because
Yes.
social media is burning. It's another source of burnout. So,
Ooh, absolutely. Yes.
so be on the lookout for Roxanne's group that's, coming in the future. Get on her mailing list. You have a mailing list and
Yes.
everything. So yeah, get on her mailing list and connect with her on social media. So, because I think the more we find people who have been on the journey, understands it, and can help you through it, the better you are.
Yes.
So what's one last word of wisdom you would give to a woman who is either in corporate or high achieving that feels a pull to do something different because they are feeling the burnout? What would you tell her to do so that she can kind of make that leap over into the healing journey?
I would tell her to remember who she was at about 15, 16, when she knew about herself and what lit her up then. And ask yourself, how close to that am I doing now? Let's start there. That's before all the other people poured their opinions into you. Let's start at a teen year where you had an opinion and go from there. It may not happen tomorrow. That's the second thing. Don't think it's going to be tomorrow. But let's just start asking yourself what a younger version of you would have loved to do at this moment.
Wow, that's excellent. I love that. I love the going back because I absolutely did that. Went back to my 16-year-old self and the decision she made, who she was, and I'm like, she was the most real part of
Yes.
me. She was so
Yes.
real,
Yes.
So I hope you all will take Roxanne's wisdom, that you'll apply it, and that you will just begin to do a little bit of introspection and remembering, because that younger version of yourself knew who she was, and she can guide you through this next chapter of your life.
Absolutely. Thank you,
So
Samantha.
thank you so much for being here, Roxanne. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and for your perspectives. I love it. So, and thank you all for listening to this episode of the Self Care Oasis podcast. You absolutely should subscribe to this podcast, like it, and share it with someone else because so many women can get so much more out of life when they're listening to conversations like this. Meet me over at my Substack. It is bliss, BLYSS.substack.com. And also find me on social media. All the information will be in the description below. And there'll be another full article based on this conversation there as well. I hope you will be well, take care, and remember that everything you desire is what you absolutely deserve. And go live in your shameless bliss. Take care.